That's a Trump thing.
Oh. Oh. See what's happening. After that, oh, and it's the last book. Yeah, I would just. Yeah.
My name is Alyssa Carpenga, and I'm the event coordinator for McNally Robinson Booksellers in Saskatoon. Tonight's event is coming to you from Treaty 6 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis nations. Special hello to anyone joining us through the live stream from home. For those of you who are here in person, thank you for joining us as well. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Saskatoon launch of The Power of Story, On Truth, the Trickster, and New Fictions for a New Era by the late Harold R. Johnson. Thank you to Joan Johnson for being here with us tonight. I'd also like to thank Biblioasis and especially Emily Mernon for working with us to create this event. Harold R. Johnson was the author of 6 works of fiction and 6 works of nonfiction, including Firewater, How Alcohol is Killing My People and Yours, which was a finalist for the Governor General's Literary Award for Nonfiction. Born and raised in northern Saskatchewan to a Swedish father and a Cree mother, Johnson served in the Canadian Navy and worked as a miner, logger, mechanic, trapper, fisherman, tree planter, and heavy equipment operator. He graduated from Harvard Law School and managed a private practice for several years before becoming a Crown prosecutor. He was a member of the Montreal Lake Cree Nation. We will now hear from Joan Johnson. Please give her a warm welcome.
Thank you all for coming. This is not my thing, this is my husband's thing. I'm the reader, he's the writer, but he's not with us anymore. He passed away in February of this last year, and he was in Ontario at my daughter's house. But he was fortunate, he lived a good life, and what he said he wanted to see happen happened. He was surrounded by his family and his loved ones. I want to introduce some of them to you today. Stan, could you please stand up? Stan is Harold's brother and his wife, Fran. Ray is his son. Tanya is here somewhere, but I don't see her. Oh, there's Tanya. As well. So we have a few missing. Nimagwas is in Vancouver. She's going to law school. And Anungos is in Toronto. And Tasha and Sabrina are both in Ontario as well. So he was fortunate in that he lived the way that he chose to live. And he died the way that he chose to die. The Power of Story was Harold's final gift. It was set in the cabin at Montreal Lake where we lived for many years. And it was with an Indigenous perspective that he wrote the book, but he was actually speaking in the book to an interfaith group. They came to listen to what he had to say about the power of story. And I'm just going to read some of what he said. What I have to say about stories is for everyone, but it is through my life story that I am able to experience the tremendous power of story. This is where I can make change, and that change can influence the larger story. And it did, and it is. So I'm going to read a couple of I guess I better tell you about this one. Harold did the substantive edits on this book. He finished them about 2 weeks before he passed away. And I was left following the manuscript after that and making sure they honored the voice and everything was all right. This really helped me when I read this, and I knew it. He'd read it to me when he wrote it, so I knew this part. But when I was alone and reading it, it really helped. My friend Robert J. Sawyer once told me that he never starts to write a book unless he knows the ending. That was the opposite of the way I had been writing. I started with an idea and found the ending as I wrote. More often, I wrote until I was tired of the story and slapped an ending on it. That's not a good strategy. Sometimes the endings were unsatisfactory. I told myself that endings were hard to write. I told myself that I needed to get better in writing endings. I made lots of excuses for myself, but Robert was right. The best strategy is to know the ending and write toward it. No, you don't know the details of the end of your life story. None of us knows the date, time, or circumstances, but we all know there is an end, and the end of your life story is just as important as the end of a fiction. It's a good strategy to be writing toward it all the time. It's that last minute that's important, that moment when you know that this is your last breath, your last heartbeat, your last thought. In that moment, you will be alone. None of the ancillary characters matter anymore. They might be there. Your family might be surrounding you as you lay dying in your own home. You might be in the hospital or lying on the side of the road. You might have a medical professional assisting you to die, but the last moment will be yours alone. This is the moment that will define your life. The last line. This is what the entire story you are creating has built toward. If in this moment you have regrets, it's your own fault. You were the author. But if in that defining moment, you look back and say, I am satisfied, then you've written a masterpiece. As we author our life stories, we have to keep that moment in mind. We need to keep contemplating our own mortality. It shouldn't fill us with fear or dread. It should instead feed us, motivate us, and give us strength. When we accept our mortality, make peace with it, when death is our friend, then we truly understand the phrase, today is a good day to die. What we understand is that the phrase is not about dying, it's about the day. Today is a good day. It's such a good day that I'm prepared to die. Every one of our days should be good enough to die in. It takes an incredible author to write that good. We have to practice writing those days until we can fill our own life story with pages so good that endings don't frighten us anymore. So when I read that, it helped me to understand that I need to be writing the next chapter of my life. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm also keeping his voice up there because what he has to say is really important. He's a brilliant man and an excellent storyteller. I'm going to read you I'm going to read you the end. I always do that. So the end is Wasagajack's story. And for those of you not familiar with Cree, Wasagajack is a trickster. Harold quite often uses Wasagajack to tell things, and I think that's how it was traditionally. If you wanted to talk about something that might not be the best approach to do it directly, he told the Wasagajack stories. So Harold is telling us, he's ending this with a Wasagajack story. Wasagajack had forgot many of the teachings of the Creator. He still remembered a few things, not much, enough to get by. At that moment, the scientists were working on solving the problem of reality. They knew that most of the physical reality was empty space, that the atoms that made up physical things were very tiny, that they really didn't know what kept everything together. What was this mystical glue? One scientist in particular was very determined. He wanted to be the first to solve the mystery. The harder he worked, the more frustrated he became. With frustration came anger. His anger drove him harder and harder until finally he succeeded in breaking the bond between atoms. It sounded like cloth being torn, and from somewhere he heard someone say, "Ouch." He had put a hole in reality itself. The scientists became very worried because the hole he had created began to grow. Like a hole in anything will get larger by itself, so too did the hole that the scientists had put in reality. There was no way of stopping the hole from getting larger. It looked like a black ball that kept growing. Anything that went into the hole disappeared because its atoms were no longer held together. Since all things are made of atoms that are far apart, when the force that holds them together is destroyed, the atoms, being very small, have no strength. The scientists tried putting lead around the black ball. Lead is a very dense material. It slowed the hole from growing a little, but since the hole was created by destroying the force that held atoms together, even lead, which is made from atoms, could not do more than slow the hole from growing. Strange things began to happen. Animals were attracted to the hole, like a moth to a flame. So too were all the animals attracted to the hole. Insects buzzed at the window to the laboratory and crawled under the door. Birds tried flying into the building. Animals from the forest came into the city to be near the hole. Any animal that was able to get into the hole did, and disappeared because its atoms were no longer held together. The people found out what was going on because the scientists could not keep it a secret, with all the animals on Earth acting strange and trying to get into the laboratory. The people were afraid when they found out. Existence was in danger and the scientists could not save it. Some scientists said that the hole could be used to get rid of nuclear waste, which they had a lot of in those days, but the people would not let them. The people no longer trusted the scientists, and besides, no one knew for certain what would happen if nuclear waste was put into the hole. Something had to be done. The animals would not stay away from the hole. All day, eagles soared over the laboratory, waiting for a chance to get to the hole. Lions tried to get out of zoos, which was the only place left where they existed. A herd of elephants drowned trying to swim across the ocean. Whales threw themselves up on the shore. So did fishes and turtles. The people were afraid that if they did not do something, that there would be no animals left on the earth. The people were especially afraid because bears and wolves were walking into the city, and the people were afraid to go outdoors. They decided that they would send the hole far out into outer space, perhaps even to the end of the universe. Wasagajack asked if he could steer the spaceship that took the hole far away. He told the scientists that he would steer the spaceship for as long as he was alive, because it would take longer than many lifetimes to get there. Then he would point the spaceship toward the end of the universe before he died. The scientists agreed to let him go because it was important that nothing happened to the spaceship that carried the dangerous hole until it was very far from the Earth. If the hole was free to grow, it would swallow up the Earth, the moon, the other planets, and even the sun. Wasagajack was alone in the spaceship, far from Earth. He had brought a sacred pipe along on the trip to pray with. He prayed very hard. He had given his life for creation and would die alone among the stars to take that hole far away from the people he loved. He was a little afraid of dying, and he was very lonely. He prayed with such sincerity that a spirit from the other side, in the shape of an eagle, came to Wasagajack in the spaceship. Wasagajack was grateful for the company and began to talk to the eagle spirit. He said, "Spirit, you must be able to travel very fast and must know how far it is to the end of the universe. Can you take this hole to the end of the universe for me so that I can go back home?" The eagle spirit answered that the end of the universe was not very far away. In fact, the end of the universe was the whole that Wasagajack was trying to take there. Then the spirit left. Wasagajack was confused. How could he take the whole that was the end of the universe to the end of the universe? Again, Wasagajack brought out his pipe and prayed. The spirit returned, this time as a bear. Wasagajack told the bear spirit that he could not figure out how to take the whole that was the end of the universe to the end of the universe, and asked the bear spirit to help him get rid of the whole. The bear spirit said he could not. Man had made the whole in existence, and man would have to mend the whole. Then the bear spirit left. Once more, Wasagajack filled his pipe and prayed. This time, when the spirit returned, it came as a woman. Wasagajack was surprised. He was about to say something when the woman said, "Humans are sacred animals too, Wasagajack." Wasagajack thought about that for a moment. Yes, it was true. Humans were sacred animals too, but most had forgotten. He asked the human spirit how men could mend the hole they had put in existence. The spirit answered, "Do like the animals that love existence so much that they are willing to give their lives to mend it." After the spirit left, Wasagajack was alone in the spaceship. He thought about going into the hole if that would repair it. He would give his life that the hole would be healed. But Wasagajack had to be sure that if he gave his life to the hole, that it would be mended. So for the fourth time, he filled his pipe and prayed. And for the fourth time, a spirit came to him, this time in the form of a wolf. Wasagajack asked the wolf spirit, why would the hole be mended if he went into it? Did the hole demand a human sacrifice? The wolf spirit laughed at Wasagajack. He said, "You humans believe that you are the most important of all creation because you are the most destructive. The animals that tried to give their lives to the hole did so because they loved existence. They came to the hole to give their love. They loved so much that they were willing to give their lives." Now Wasagajack was very confused. He asked the wolf spirit how it was that an emotion such as love could mend a hole in existence. How was it that when the force that kept the atoms together was broken, love could mend it? The wolf spirit explained that existence was love. The force that kept the atoms together was the Great Spirit, and the Great Spirit was love. It was only because the scientist was very, very, very angry that he was able to put a hole in the Great Spirit. It was the Great Spirit who had said, "Ouch," when the scientist put a little hole in him. So Wasagajack filled his heart with love for all of existence, which is the Creator, and the hole slowly closed itself back up. Then Wasagajack turned the spaceship around and came back to the earth. That is how we know to love all of creation, and why we try so hard to live in harmony with the animals and plants that are our relatives in creation. We are all held together by the same force that keeps our atoms from drifting apart. It's a love story. Just in closing, in this book, Harold was really trying to impress on all of us that we have the ability to be able to write our own stories. And because we write our own stories, we have the ability to change them as well. So let's all do the best that we can to make the world a better place. Bye.
Thank you again to Joan Johnson and everyone at Biblioasis. Huge thanks to you all who attended tonight's launch, either in person or virtually. We've got copies of The Power of a Story here. Just be sure to stop at the main cash desk to purchase them on your way out the door. It's also available online. Thank you all so much for joining us, and have a wonderful evening.